we drink the poison? Do we not drink the poison? This is the dilemma that HBomberGuy has presented us with, because he is some kind of woke extremist. I don't normally pay attention to him because the only sort of thesis he ever creates is to do with video games, and I'm not really interested in his idea on video games. I've heard good and bad about it, but I don't care, right? But this was great. Moderation is a delusion people invent to describe themselves. There is no moderation between right and left, just like there is no moderation between correct and incorrect. That's just wrong but pretentious and easily upset about it. That is amazing. I mean, Harry, you understand that, like, right and left are not the same as correct and incorrect? I mean, don't get me wrong, you're going to get partisans on either side that are going to say that they are, and I'm sure we can guess which side that you think is 100% correct. But they are not actually tests, they are just ways of seeing the world. And there can indeed be moderation between the two, because not either one has everything correct. Some things that the right say are true, some things that the left say are true. And yes, this is why moderation, otherwise known as compromise, rational alt-centrism, is definitely something that needs to be done. If you want to see your democracy carry on functioning. It means you can't just be a hardline zealot extremist who says, no, all of the good in the world is with me and all of the bad is with you, and therefore there is literally no moderation between us because you are the archetype, the epitome, the incarnation of evil, which is your opinion on the opponents there, Harry, at least as you have described it here. But this is the best bit. Moderation between drinking poison and not drinking poison is drink a little bit of poison, then a bit more when the purity testing non-drinkers make fun of you. That's not a dilemma, Harry. I don't know how to explain it to you. Like, is there ever a time where you must drink poison and have an option of not drinking poison? I mean, if you must catch the bus and you don't catch the bus, then you have a practical dilemma that you're trying to fill. If you don't go and get the bus now, the bus you must get you're going to miss, and you're going to be like, well, I've just missed my bus. The practical dilemma has been resolved for me and not in my favour because I needed to get that bus. I really don't see why drinking poison will ever be part of a practical dilemma. I mean, maybe you could think of some particularly esoteric situation where that will actually be a thing. But let's be honest, that's kind of a silly thing to say, isn't it? And so, I mean, the only thing I can think of is you ought to do something. Ought we drink the poison or ought we not drink the poison? Again, it's not much of a moral dilemma, is it? Unless we've got someone putting a gun to our head, I suppose, and then maybe drinking a little bit of that poison might actually be the answer. But I mean, hey, that's never a good thing, moderation, is it, Harry? It's got to be all one way or all another, doesn't it? But this is just so dumb. It's not a comparison between right and left, or drinking poison and not drinking poison. It's so ridiculous. I understand there's social capital right now and seeming open-minded and capable of compromise in increasingly partisan time, but it's not open-minded at all to fetishize your existing beliefs as the things open-minded people believe. Yeah, no one's doing that. That'd be tautological, Harry, okay? It's about being able to listen to the other side and actually consider they might have something about what they're saying that is true, but you, the woke extremist, obviously doesn't think this because you have just eradicated the concept of moderation in your own, I was going to say internal narrative, but I would be surprised if you had one of those. I mean, I love the way that you've even framed this, right? It's not about right and wrong. Right? It's not about whether it's good or bad. It's not about whether it's moral or immoral. What you have said here is just, is it tactically useful? Is it strategic to have an open-minded position? Because there seems to be a lot of social capital in it. Probably because of the radicalization of the West at the moment, on both sides of the aisle. Yeah, it seems that it might be useful to be a bit more moderate at this point and actually have a dialogue and compromise on various political positions. But I mean, you know, if you can only analyze the world through a cost-benefit analysis, like some kind of sociopath, then maybe you don't really understand why these things are important. I mean, maybe you just do not think that the people on the other side of the aisle are moral beings. Maybe you view them like Christians used to view atheists, like they just are not moral. There's something in a lot of people in the Islamic world. They're just inherently immoral. But anyway, forgive the rant. Just a little tired of seeing people waste so much time they could have spent on having a real discussion, telling people how clever and non-extreme they think what they believe is. I care about what you actually think, not how normal what you think it is. What you think is. Look, nobody's saying that the nobody, or at least no one I have seen, is saying I am a moderate because of like X, right? It's always about the will to compromise and how far from your current position you are willing to go. Obviously, radicals like you are going to be like, well, I mean, being a moderate isn't going to get me to my utopian end state, so being a moderate is basically for cucks. But for people who live in the real world and want to see democracy not collapse, being a moderate is way better than being a radical, because otherwise when the mask slips and you have like Cortez going, well, I'm the one with the power, you know, you guys in the cheap seats can shut your fucking mouths, you can see the sort of monster lurking beneath, can't you? Not that you can, obviously. I mean, you're totally on side with that. But sure, you can be like partially right about things, but isn't the goal to be more right and not to get a healthy balance, isn't it? Yeah, but politics isn't about being right and wrong, right? That's why you are failing in this dilemma that you've failed to create. This is not about right and wrong. This is about what is productive and conducive to mutual understanding in order to prevent us from killing one another. That's the point, right? That's the reason that we don't just anathematize our enemies and say, right, they are the source of bad, we are the source of good, therefore, right? Therefore, their human rights are a problem, is effectively what you're saying about your opposition. Their human rights are a problem for you. Now, I mean, you'll probably say, well, that's what I think because I'm some zany communist. And it's like, okay, great. And this, I mean, for example, you have this, right? We want to kill black people. We want civil rights. How about we compromise? That's not the question. The question is not, are we going to let the KKK kill black people? That's obviously not a question. Right? We're not compromising on their rights, except if you're on the other side, you will say, well, you know what? Fuck their human rights. They don't get to speak. They don't get to have a platform. They don't get to be a part of society. In fact, they don't even get to live if we had our way. You know, punch a Nazi. What's the logical conclusion of that, etc., etc.? And so the guy in the middle saying compromise is like, well, hang on. How about we don't kill each other and have a dialogue? Why don't you ask them why they want to kill black people? I mean, there are people who actually go out of their way, like black guys who go out of their way to effectively de-radicalize people in the KKK just by talking to them, just by saying, look, black people are not just what you think. Like, I am a decent person. If we can talk, then they'll realize, well, okay, all black people but that guy. And then the next one, all black people but those two guys then. And then, okay, but those three, look, that dozen over there, they're fine. The rest of them, and eventually, you see how you end up de-radicalizing someone? But you wouldn't think that. You wouldn't do that. You'd probably push them into a wood chipper, wouldn't you? For smirking or something like that. You know? Like, Harry, it's not good to be an extremist, Harry. It's not good to suggest that moderation is a bad thing, especially when you live in democracy, especially if you claim to think democracy is a good idea. Now, I don't know that you think democracy is a good idea, and judging by your statements, I can only infer that you don't. But hey, prove me wrong, Harry. Prove me wrong.